Welcome back, guys, to the second video here at the Nordic Touchline, diving into our career mode challenge. We are going through a couple of self-imposed rules that we want to keep in mind going forward and that we want to orient ourselves during this challenge. First of all, just little additional information that I wasn't sure about in the last video regarding our opponents. You see here Mohun Bagan, a super giant that we discussed, who are the best team in the league by far by their initial rating. I just wanted to mention that they are from Kolkata, as well as is East Bengal FC. The real life champions. And then also Mohammedan SC is also from Kolkata. They are by far the lowest rated team in the league. So this just two complete informations on our opponents and as a little callback to our last video. Then let's start with going through a couple of rules that we want to consider. We'll start off with the academy. Here we have a very obvious problem that I will explain in a minute. As our first rule for academy is you must promote players who are higher rated than someone in your first team squad. We might amend that to as higher rated than the second lowest rated in your first team squad, I think. But when we play in leagues like the one we do, we run into a very obvious problem. As you can see, our initial academy players are already rated like 58, 61, 61, 62, and this at the age of only 15 or 16 years. So with these overalls, you might remember our first team squad consists of a lot of players that are only rated in their high 40s or very low 50s overall. So this rule makes absolutely no sense. So I think we will just not consider the youth academy at all when playing in the absolute lowest rated leagues. Youth academy might then become more important when we change to bigger clubs, to bigger leagues. If this is going to happen, nobody knows yet, but it just completely breaks any logic if we use youth academy players in this level of competitions. So we'll basically, at least in our first season here in the Indian Super League, we will completely ignore our youth academy. But anyways, we'll just quickly go through the most important rules in case that at some point it becomes important in the future. So rules, as I just said, must promote players that are higher rated than the second lowest rating in our first team squad. Then we have to build a full under 19 and a full under 16 with 8 players each, and covering all the first team positions as soon as possible. Then we basically only want to accept academy players with kind of realistic cranium faces and hairstyles. This is something that is quite important to me, as the randomly generated youth players sometimes look absolutely ridiculous and unrealistic, and we don't really want that. Then we are allowed to a maximum of 2 youth signings to the senior squad per season. Still, we have to follow all the manager objectives though. And if we have more players that are highly enough rated to include into the first team squad, we have to release some of them, as obviously there can never be a space for whatever, 10 youth players coming into a first team squad. Then in terms of youth scout location priorities, of course, the priority is most importantly scout in the same country as your club. And then as we go up the ranks and our youth academy can develop or can be bigger, we can also scout in neighboring countries or countries that speak the same language, family, or share the same history. So for example, just like if we manage a Spanish team, for example, we can scout in Spanish-speaking leagues all over the world, or Portuguese-speaking world clubs and leagues all over the world if we manage a Portuguese team, or then Slavic-speaking, whatever. Just you get a point. And yeah, so this for this much for how we want to treat academy. It's not going to be a topic initially now, as we are playing in a very, very low rated Indian Super League. Let's continue with some general rules for scouting. We have scouting activated. We also have player research activated, but we want to avoid using it, so we'll consider it as deactivated. It's just sometimes very useful to just look up something like a player looks or some stats, whatever. But we treat it as off, so we want to do everything with scouting. We'll have some rules. If we manage a team that is below 69 rated, so of course we are like 58 rated now, so far below. It's just in general, so we'll take the English league system as a reference. So in League 1 and League 2, usually teams are rated below 69, so this means you can only use 3 scouts to explore neighboring countries of the same language. So for example, let's say we would manage Mansfield Town, so that would mean we can only scout in England, Ireland and Scotland, for example. And then in a Champions League tier, so that means teams that are maybe between 69 and 75 overall rating, you can only use 4 scouts in total to explore neighboring countries of the same language. You can also explore one nearby foreign-speaking country. So yeah, for example, that would be France or whatever. Then in Premier League tier, when it comes to scouting, let's say Premier League tier clubs without European football that are not playing in European competitions, that's usually teams that are rated between 76 and 80. We could use 5 scouts, but you can scout anywhere, but you can only use 5 scouts. And then in PL tier, Premier League tier with European football, so teams that are basically world class or rated 80 and above overall, you have full access in scouting. Yeah, this is how we want to treat scouting overall. Then we have a lot of self-imposed rules regarding buying players, selling players, wages and contracts. Will not go through them as it is too many and is not that interesting, I guess. So we'll skip to squad rules in general, and this is very important. The first and most important rule is just follow the domestic continental competition squad rules. This means wherever we manage our clubs, we have to follow the official squad rules that are in place. So for example, here in the Indian Super League, this means we can only use a maximum of 4 foreign players. We can only field a maximum of 4 foreign players. I think registered in the squad, it can be 6 in total, but then we can only field 4 foreign players, so non-Indian players, in our matchday squad. So this would be one domestic competition squad rule. I'll give you some other examples, like in the Australian A-League, there can be I'll give you the example of the Premier League, just as a very overall and famous example. So you have a maximum squad size of 25 players that can be registered, maximum of 23 outfield players, and a minimum of 2 goalkeepers that have to be in the squad. Then you have a minimum of 8 homegrown players. So a homegrown player is a player who has spent at least 3 seasons with a team affiliated to the FA or FAW before the season they turn 22 years old. Then you have under 21s or academy players that do not count towards the squad cap. So you can have more players in total, but the squad size just consists of the over 21-year-old players. Then you have specific regulations for the Carabao Cup and the Champions League, for examples. Just in general, we try to follow these rules. Then there are other rules also regarding transfers that we want to follow. For example, whether or match day squads. Let's say, for example, if you have a loan player you cannot use him against his parent club in certain leagues, so we want to follow that for sure. Then regarding transfers, you have leagues like the Australian A-League, where there are no transfer fees possible between clubs in the A-League. So basically, players from the same league, so players from opponent clubs, can only be recruited when their contract is running out, and you can approach them early. This is only possible for players that are over 23 years old. Then again, loans within the league are only possible for players that are under 23 years, and there is a maximum of 2 loan players that you can loan in this way. So this means for us, we just have to really optimize our scouting. So we have to do early scouting for players with expiring contracts if we want to recruit them for the following season. We have to pre-negotiate deals with players over the age of 23 and so on. So this just as examples. Then we have, let's see, to register our squads officially. Let's leave that out for now. Let's continue with training rules in general, and this is something that is just very, very important. Let's go to training plans and development plans. Development plans in particular. Let's go through a couple of rules here. This is something that is very, very important if you want to have if you want to enjoy some realism in general in your career mode save. I really have to recommend that for everybody that wants to have some realism in the career mode, because what we do is we are not allowed to use this new feature that is dynamic in development plans. So, and a dynamic development plan, because what happens is just within no time you will have all your players with 5 star skill moves and 5-star weak foot and just way overpowered. And of course CPU teams are not using this feature, so we should really not do it. And it's just a default. They're all on dynamic in the beginning. You can see I already turned them on balance already. You can just go through all, you just have to go through all your players, and you go from dynamic and you set it on balanced. You go to the next one and you do the same. Yeah, so general rules regarding trainings. You can only train players who are in your youth academy, so we cannot train players that are already in our first team squad. Sole reason behind this is also just it's so easy to train players in no times to become way overpowered. So after that, no strategy is needed. You're just you just play with overpowered players. This doesn't make sense. We want to avoid that, so we're not using any training. We have a couple of exceptions to this that we will mention in a minute. We go on. Players in your youth academy can only be trained to 60 overall. So as soon as they are higher rated than 60, we don't train them. They're just set unbalanced, and we don't train them any further in a specific direction. Same reason, they become way too overpowered in no time. Then if a player comes into your academy already above 60 overall, you cannot train them, of course. Once a player is promoted to your senior team, they can no longer be trained. You cannot, under any circumstances, train a player in your senior team. Includes players who are under 60 overall in your senior team. Then we have two exceptions to that rule. Exception 1, realistic position changes are allowed. So for example, if you have a CDM, so central defensive midfielder, you can turn him into a central midfielder. Or a left back, you can turn him to a right back when, for example, his weak foot is at least 4 stars. But only one position change per player can be allowed. Then we have an exception number 2. If a player is 19 years old or younger, you may train him for 1 more star in skill moves and or weak foot, but only if he has 2 stars and via positional training. So whenever a player has only 2 stars in, let's say, skill moves or weak foot, and he is 19 years old or younger, we are allowed to train him for 1 more star in skill moves, as it's just way more fun to play with players who can do the absolute basic skill moves in the gameplay. Yeah, so this is it for training rules. One additional rule further than that is only allowed to do press conferences for big games such as rivals, derbies, Champions League games, etc. As I feel that it helps morale too much, so we make sure the responses are realistic, even though it brings down morale. And yeah, we just don't spam these press conferences and make everybody happy all the time. So we want the team to reflect the sporting status that we are in to the highest degree possible. So we don't try to take advantage of these career mode bugs at all. Then to end this off, we'll just go through the couple of self-imposed rules that concern the journeyman career mode that could be possible if we're good enough to make it out of the Indian League at some point. We'll quickly go through these rules that are very straightforward. So we want to fix a realistic contract length for each club that we manage. Usually this is 2 or 3 seasons, seasons, we extend the contract in due time if we don't plan to change to another club. As I previously mentioned, here in Mumbai City FC, we're already in our third and last year of contract, as our guy Petr Kratky is in real life. So we are already in our last year of contract. This means we would be open to play with another club after the season has ended. Let's see when we get to that point. Then the club in general will only extend your contract when your confidence rating is at least 75 or at least okay, I think it's called here in EAFC 26. I'll show you that. I can go here to office, objectives. You see your general objectives. One of our objectives here would be reach the playoff semifinal for this year. And you can see job security safe. So it says safe or okay. As long as it is safe or okay, we can consider the trust of the board high enough in order to prolong our contract if we want so as well. If it is under the notion okay, your contract expires automatically in the expiry date and you have to find or apply find a new club or apply to a new position. You can only leave the club before your contract is expired if you either won a major trophy, you exceeded the board objectives regarding league and or cup success, or if you're sacked. So if you're sacked, of course, you have to find another position, another club, obviously. Then if you win a major trophy, you are allowed to make the next step, even when your contract is still running. Major trophy usually means it has to be either winning the league or the main cup competition of the league. Then what does exceeding the board's objectives regarding league and or cup success mean? For example, here you can see we have the target reach the playoff semifinals. Exceeding it would be if we reach the final. Then we are also allowed to apply for a next higher challenge, for example. But then the next position must be offering a higher wage than what you are currently getting. You can see your current salary here in the, my career. On the top right, you can see 15,000 euros wage. So you always have to check that. The next position must be offering a higher wage than what you are currently getting unless sacked. Then, of course, if you're getting sacked, of course, you will have to accept a lower salary as well if you find a new club. Keep checking the changes in offered wage for every application. Then, if you have won a major trophy, your next position can be at a club with a max +8 of overall rating. So for example, you can always check here in the team sheets, you can check the overall rating of your own club. For example, now we are with Mumbai City FC. You can see our ratings is you can do the average of whatever the rating here says, or you can also look it up what the different teams are overall rated. And for example, here with Mumbai City, we're at a total rating of 58. Should we win the league this year, our next position is a maximum of overall rating of 58 +8, so 66. It cannot be higher. Then we go on. If you exceed the board's objectives regarding league and cup success, your next positions can be at a club with a max +6 overall rating. then if you meet the board's objectives regarding league and cup success, your next position, if you met the board's objectives regarding league and cup success, your next position can be at the club with a max +4 overall rating. And there's an extra rule regarding this if you have also reached a higher finish as the club did in the previous year. So this means you can go max +5 overall rating, and if the position is lower than in the previous year, it can only be a max +2 overall rating for the next club. If you have not met the board's objectives regarding league and cup success, your next position can be with a club with a max +2 overall rating. And in the case that we are sacked from our current club, your next position can be at a club with a max +1 overall rating. So we cannot apply or get into a better club than before, basically. And if there is absolutely no possibility or suggestion of clubs that are in this range, then we actually have to end our career, if there is no appropriate offer. That's it. Almost. We have one more rule. You're allowed to accept any job offer that you get as long as the club in question is not overperforming in terms of league position. You are offered a higher wage. Sorry, I lost my table here. So as long as the club in question is not overperforming in terms of league position, you also have to be offered a higher wage, and you are in your last year of contract with your current club. So these are the rules to accept an offer that you get from another club. And then one exception is if the club that is offering you a position is at least 7 overall points higher rated than your current club, you can leave earlier, as we think of it as they would be able to pay your release clause, so to compensate your current club for it. But this not really expecting this to happen anyways. And then just one last rules regarding transfers. In a new position at a new club, you can buy a max of 1 single player from your most recent ex-club in the first transfer window. So you can only bring 1 player with you, if any. So I think this is it for the main rules that we want to follow. And as soon as in our next video, we'll actually start with diving into our challenge, start with preseason, assess our players, and go on from here. Looking forward to see you there. Cheers and bye-bye.